So hello and welcome to this free first Magic Mondays, the first Monday of the month where we meet in this environment of magic that is what we truly are. And each month I think about a topic, something that feels relevant and resonant for me. And we don't have to stay there, but I will start there with a little opening, my opening musings. And what came to me for this particular gathering was to look at comfort and comfort zones. And I think I probably first started hearing that phrase in the self-development world as I got into the world of coaching and psychology. And I remember in my neuro-linguistic programming training, what they years ago, they told me, they did a little exercise and they were great with doing physical things and using metaphors, right? And so I remember them drawing a circle on the floor and they said everything. So the circle was you and your comfort zone, everything you know, everything familiar to you. And I think they might even have had someone stand in the middle of it. And then they said, everything you want is outside your comfort zone. And it was like a very, like a deep moment, like, I'm gonna be scared then because it's outside my comfort zone. And I believed that for a long time. And then I began to see other things. I began to realize that comfort doesn't lie in my familiar surroundings. That feeling of comfort is a feeling. And like any other, it comes from whatever thought created experience I'm having. But I don't just want to repeat that, right? Like, so I had been seeing that, but I'm really reflecting on it now because I'm in some situations, some of which feel very uncomfortable and some of which would have been extremely uncomfortable for me a year ago or 5 years ago and really aren't. And that's kind of where you can see through the holes in this, right? You can see through the holes in this idea that we need to feel fear or we need to feel discomfort in order to do something worth doing. Because otherwise we're just going to stay in our little comfort zone and we're never going to do anything. And so it's a good thing and maybe even a required thing that we feel uncomfortable or that we feel fear. And I don't buy that because I can see the inconsistencies. And I'll invite you to reflect on some of them yourself. Has there ever been something you were really comfortable doing, like really familiar with, and you felt nervous about it for no reason at all? Or the times when there was something that usually scares the shit out of you and you showed up and for some reason it didn't. You were really okay. Like those inconsistencies where it looks like things don't line up point to the fact, the truth, right? That comfort can't be found in our circumstances. It's not where it comes from. But man, does it really look like it. I'm going to give you an example from yesterday. Yesterday, I went out on the ocean and tried stand-up paddle boarding for the first time. And I wanted to do it. I had a little bit of nervousness about it. I'm not a very confident swimmer. Not in still water, not in a lake, not in a pool. And here I am going out on the ocean. But I wanted to try it. And sure enough, like I'm on the ocean, like, oh my God, I don't have a life jacket on. And I happen to be swimming with someone who's a lifeguard, which is probably the only reason I would agree to do that. I'm like, are you sure I'm safe? Are you sure I'm safe? Yes, you're safe. Yes, you're safe. Okay. And I got up on that board and just picture, this is how it looked to me. This is the story in my head. I'm standing on a board floating on the ocean and the waves are coming and like I'm tipping, right? Like, oh my God, I got to keep my balance. And I'm trying to row with this paddle, trying to paddle and do this form that I learned. I'm like, no, no, I'm going to fall off. And I really don't want to fall off because I'm thinking about all the things swimming under me and all the waves and like, oh my God, I don't know about ocean swimming and I'm not even that great with regular swimming and right. So none of this was really very conscious, but I was clearly feeling kind of nervous and I fell off the board. It was going to happen. And it didn't bother me falling off the board. What was bothering me was being in the water and then having to do something about it. And so very quickly, I'm like, the board, it's my lifeline. There we go. I'm back on it. And I climbed up and it was cold. The water is cold here in Portugal. And something in me kind of like shut off. I noticed it was like I kind of went numb. And it was okay, but I wasn't really enjoying myself. I didn't hate it, but it's like I couldn't really feel. And I knew, actually, this was knowing inside me, this isn't a good situation today for you to try to stand up on this paddleboard. It's actually better for you to get comfortable with the water first. And so after a little bit, I just said, I'm going back in. And it was okay. Like it wasn't a horrible experience, but I felt like I was bone cold afterward and in a strange state, almost like my body just went into this protective state for like a good hour afterward. And I knew it was happening and I didn't freak out about it. I remember this before, like it's almost like, I don't usually use this language, but like nervous system overload, like too much for me, shut down kind of, I didn't talk a lot. And then I gradually warmed up and came back to myself. And I started really thinking about comfort because that came up, like comfort with the water is really important for swimming. It's really important for doing something like stand-up paddleboarding. But comfort doesn't come from my surroundings, doesn't come from my circumstance. It doesn't come from how many hours I've had swimming. So where does it come from? And it looks like sometimes it has looked to me, and I've talked to other people who've shared this experience, that I need that discomfort, that I need that fear in order to protect myself and keep myself safe. But I saw that when I fell into the water off that board, there was a moment of panic. And I was not my wisest self in that moment. I was kind of scrambling for things. That's what happens when people are like fearful of drowning and they pull someone down, right? Because they're just scrambling. Like it was like that. And I know that's not me at my best. And I just started thinking, could I be comfortable and still wise? Could I be comfortable in a situation where I know that there are risks and maybe I'm lacking experience? And I don't really have clear answers about that, but it's sort of, I have a sense of the answer. And my sense is that I could be a lot more comfortable and it would actually, I would be more aware and better able to protect myself, better able to keep myself safe in any environment. And that also, that's not a reason for me to push myself because I should feel comfortable when I don't. Because what occurs to me is to go slow and to allow myself to become acclimated. And that is being more comfortable, right? And even noticing when I feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it does make sense to move into it. And sometimes it makes sense to slow down. But the comfort or discomfort isn't what tells me that. It's something else inside of me that says, hey, Steph, this is what you need right now. And in all of it, I'm getting like, be really kind to myself. That's what, like, be really kind in this learning curve that I'm in. And the example is, being on the ocean, but all these other things in a new country, in a new culture. And today I'm like struggling to try to get money from here to there. Like, how do you transfer money between accounts, between currencies? Some cards seem to work. There are ways things work in a different country. They're different. They're just different. Checking out in a store is a little different. Not just the language pieces, but the way the machines work. And some places have some self-checkout options, but it's really different than self-checkout I've seen before. And I'm noticing that I'm not trying to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm not trying to avoid discomfort. I'm sort of just noticing it and having a little bit more compassion than maybe I usually would for my human self in the midst of it, because that's the experience I'm having. And just because I know how it's created and that it doesn't have to be that way, doesn't mean I should deny it or push myself through it. So that's sort of the question that I'm in, is like, what feels uncomfortable? Sometimes it keeps us from doing things we actually want to do. Like, we actually really do want to do something, but the thought of what that would mean or how I might feel is so uncomfortable that it keeps me from doing it. Just kind of planting that seed a little bit. And I'd love to know what you see or what comes up for you. And I would love to hear your thoughts, Tom, anything that might be sparked from what I just said as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. That's a great story. There's so much in there, so many things that I'm sure we all can relate to. The thing that came up for me that was kind of interesting as you were speaking, and it's come up a lot for me recently, having to do with, not feeling uncomfortable, feeling afraid, feeling down, whatever those different flavors of feelings are. That, and I've experienced those all my life. But the thing that has changed in the past, whatever, and I don't even know what changed or when it changed, but there's a feeling more now that's not, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't actually hurt me to be feeling those things, whereas before it did. So like something has been, it's the same experience in a way. And so there's less about avoiding, not avoiding. It's just feeling, safe in the moment in a way. Like, you can be in the situation, even like physically that you were in with the, the paddleboard, the water, the sort of waving motion going on. And probably, I'm guessing you may have gone through a different series of feeling okay and then feeling scared, feeling okay, feeling scared. So there's something in there to me that's very comforting. I'll use that word in a different way. It's very comforting to know that the feelings that I'm experiencing, even though they kind of suck sometimes and really feel bad sometimes, when this thing wakes up that says, okay, yes, and it's not hurting you. And it just gives the whole thing a different flavor. And, in terms of like what I do or don't do, because that's a whole topic too, things that I think I want to do. And then when it comes time to do them, I'm like, oh, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And whether that's because I'm afraid or I really don't, I just thought I wanted to do it. That's a topic too. But they're related into, I think the thing that is the real gift in all of this, or prize, if I could use that word, is not whether or not I do the things that I say that I want to do or accomplish things, accomplish specific things that I think are important. It's moving, through life more with this feeling of it's safe to feel what I'm feeling. And when it's safe to feel what I'm feeling, it actually can feel, it can kind of feel, I don't want to say good necessarily, but it can be like interesting. So real briefly, I had an experience a couple of weeks ago where I was taking care of my friend's house and their animals and their car, and I picked them up at the airport. And as I went to get in the car to pick them up at the airport, I had noticed someone had gotten into the car and had rifled through it, which happens a lot here, it seems, and particularly that neighborhood. And my first thought was, oh shit, I didn't lock the door. I'm responsible for this. And I really got worked up about it for a few minutes. But in the past, that would have really just kept going on and on and on and on. But there was something even in that, even when, apparently I forgot to lock the door, or I thought I locked the door at the button, but I didn't really lock it. But after a few minutes, I was like, well, yeah, it's not, it's probably going to be okay. I don't think there was anything in the car. I don't think they got anything. And they may be upset, but they're not going to be that upset. They're not going to be that mad at me and say, Tom, you can't use my car again, or, that kind of stuff. So there was a point where even that familiar feeling of being bad or doing something wrong had a little different flavor to it. And it didn't last as long. And then when we actually got to the airport and I told them, my friend was like, oh, wow. And then they were like, the other person said, yeah, we do that all the time. It's not a big deal. I don't think they got anything. And part of me is like, well, if they got something, it's like, it's kind of on you, because you should not be keeping things in your car of value in that neighborhood, especially. And it's a nice neighborhood, to tell you the truth. But I learned that a long time ago, not to keep things in my car, that are valuable. So it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable in a way, but not as a like strategy or as a doing. It's like as a reality, like, oh, this feels bad, but it's not hurting me. So I don't know if anyone relates to that, but if you ever, or you've had a taste of that, but I have to tell you, it's amazing to go through life and occasionally catch on to the fact that what's bothering me is not hurting me. It's a gift. So I'll stop there, and then if anyone else has, they want to share.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Where do you find comfort? Where does it come from? What's coming up for you around this? And if you'd like to share, if you'd like, you can use the little reactions. You can go to reactions and raise your digital hand so we can see you. Or if you're feeling especially brave and comfortable, you can just unmute yourself and speak into the room.
I will speak.
Michaela, hi.
Well, there was a few things that came up. Your last question, I think I had nightmares about some things that I'm wanting to do in my business, in speaking out and such. So I was kind of really messy this morning, and actually felt it would be better if I don't talk to anyone. When I go on a call, just listen. But I feel better now, actually. Go figure. But when you just asked the question about, that feeling, it's like, oh, I felt that a few times this morning. And it was maybe especially bright because it was so shitty this morning. And I went into that, what the flip am I doing? Why am I doing this? Do I even bother? Home Depot's just down the road. I could just go do my shift or whatever. Actually, a number of years ago, I tried to get a job there and they didn't hire me. So maybe that option's off the table too. But I felt it several times this morning, a feeling of where it was just so awful. And then it was just like, oh, wow, there's the space. So, and when I was listening to your paddleboard story, and Tom in the, someone's been through, it's like, oh, I could recognize that. And two things came to mind. One is I have if you know, I'm considered highly sensitive, if you look at that. And I look at those kinds of things like I'm Scorpio, I'm a 7 Enneagram, I'm all of that. It's just, it's good information, good to know. And so a number of years ago, I worked with someone in business who works with highly sensitive entrepreneurs. And she had this thing that it was called, we managed our energy every morning. That was one of the things that we were invited to do, manage your energy. And I've recently been looking at that because it's like, you know, she wasn't so far off base. Like what I realize now is she was giving my left brain mind something to do to get to a place of feeling the feeling that I really wanted. And I've been exploring with this idea of, because when we're just settling into who we are and that we're making it all up and we're always okay, and, you know, well-being is our nature. It's just like, you know, when your left brain is just like, wing, 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 but, you know, spinning. So it can give your left brain something to do just to sort of keep it busy. Well, the natural stuff can just like get you into the space. So I'm kind of in this like teeter-totter right now because I determined yesterday, and I can feel me doing this stutter step to switch. I'm on a website, WordPress, WP Engine, and I'm killing it all, and I'm moving it to this new, fresh, all-in-one, and it's just like, oh, so, you know, and I'm just coming up with all the reasons, and how many people do I know who to use it? Who do I go to? You know, and it's like, wow, all of that. So even thinking about that, it's just like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. You know, I don't have a life jacket there either, but I think I'll stay afloat. I'm not going to be any worse off. And who knows what's going to happen. So it's kind of a mess. It feels a little bit messy when I say it out loud, but it didn't feel like that when I first began. But thanks for listening.
Thanks, Michaela. You know what's really funny when you said that about I don't have a life jacket, but I think I'll float. That's something that, you know, my partner who was with me on the water said, he's like, you know, you really float in the ocean. Like you can't not float. And there's something about that as a metaphor for how hard I have tried to like stay safe on my little boat, clinging to my little raft, whatever it is, you know, because the waters of the unknown all over the place. When I'm really, I can float. Like I'm floating, I'm held. There's something true about that I feel, that I know. And it's interesting, Michaela, that you talked about people who work with highly sensitive people. I just did a 3-day client immersive with a gentleman who specializes in working with highly sensitive people, and he calls them energy sensitive people. He likes this term better. And he described the feeling that he would get going into a room with 100 people. And he described it of like, oh my God, I'm just thinking about all these people and like their energies and like I can't, and it's overwhelming and blah, 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 like all this. And he was even gesturing like it's all going through my mind. And we were exploring, like, is there a different way to show up there? Are you okay? And he said, but if I look at the spiritual truth, and he was pointing like to his core, from there, it's quiet. And I don't feel any of that. And the energies, we spent some time talking about, is it okay for those energies to move through you? And what Tom was saying, like, no matter what happens, we're meant to feel. And I don't know where things come from, if they're mine or somebody else's, or, you know, and if I'm feeling them in some sense, it's my experience in the moment, regardless of where it comes from. There have been times when it felt really useful to know that's not mine. But what was really useful is that's not me. And it doesn't mean anything about what's happening. I don't have to take that seriously or go into it in a way that scares the crap out of me. Oh, it's like, oh, that's not me. That's not mine. It's not fixed. It doesn't mean anything. It's moving through like the weather. And he was seeing something about that. And he was also seeing that it had kept him, understandably, trying to protect himself by not connecting with others, by pulling back, because to feel all that energy, by shutting down, which there was a version of that going on in me on that paddleboard. I could feel it and I knew it was happening, and it was okay because I knew I would open up again. And I did. It didn't take very long. And there was actually something beautiful about that protective mechanism, and even more beautiful to know that was okay. I would open up again, and that maybe next time I wouldn't have to do that. I wouldn't feel like I had to do that, rather. Something else would be possible. Yeah. It ended up being a longer ramble than I thought. Hmm. What else? What else is occurring to you? Could be something different. There's also an opening for you to talk about maybe something that does feel uncomfortable for you in your business, or a question that you have. Doesn't even have to be related. But I really love this, like, can we find the comfort in the discomfort of whatever we might be experiencing? That's so hopeful, so comforting.
I found the unmute button. So
You did. Hallelujah, Peter.
finally, self-expression is possible. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll cut straight to the chase, and then say a few other things maybe. But and I apologize that I have a practice that really allows me to explore being in the moment. I mean, it's a form of Qigong I learned 24 years ago that just works for me. It tunes me into energy, and I don't understand how it works, which is why it works. You know, because if I knew how it worked, then I would be busy trying to make it happen, and I can't. I can just go engage with it and do an exploration with it. And one of the things that's been coming to me more and more, sometimes I've gone in with a sense of, here's a feeling I don't often feel, you know, something that I experienced with this particular friend, and I would like to explore it. I would like to open that space up in me more, if possible. But other times, a lot recently, I've just gone in with whatever my body felt sensations are in the moment, because my experience when I tune into just how my body is holding things right now, that if there's a shift it wants to make, my shoulders want to relax, or something in me wants to take at least a slightly deeper breath, that's busy happening. That's already on offer. And I want to play with that, with this energy. And what's been hardest to resolve have been the things that are kind of like a little jagged bit of tension, kind of that I feel in my cranium. And it's been, you know, sometimes just hanging with that has been enough for something to begin to shift. and I don't know how. And there've been other layers of discomfort. I'm like, yeah, and there's just been I've just sensed it's as if the discomfort itself is a seeking, is an openness to coming more fully into life. So I'll just trust it because I'm playing with this form where the energy's already moving. And then there's just something, there's like it's there's kinetic energy, which you can see because it's active and moving. And then there's the potential energy when there's a branch that's weighted down by all the new leaves on it. And you can tell in the fall, when all those leaves fall off, the potential energy of that branch will bring it back up. Just saying, there's a potential energy in the discomforts of it hanging out with. They're already it's already seeking. It's just that the hanging with it and playing with the energy and the rest of my body is supporting. I don't know, but I want to put that forth. The other thing, the biggest challenge that I'm kind of facing relatively immediately on behalf of a friend who experienced someone a few years ago coming in to her right before she was preparing to do a performance with a group of people. It was a few days, but they were all together. They were ready to do this thing in front of a group, a specified group. And somebody came in, critiqued them, and in such a devastating way that it blew them all apart. And the 7 or 8 people who were involved just kind of disbanded. I will note that there was at least 1 or 2 people there who said, we don't need to let this happen. Whereas the others felt really traumatized. And so my friend has been asking, she's ready to restart the group. And she's asking, will I be attacked again? And for me, that's a great question. I was like, yeah, I want to hang out with her in that space. I'm like, what could you do? What resources, what would transform the possibility that somebody could come in and yell at you and it would just be a lot of energy that you might have to shake off in a few minutes, but it wouldn't be anything about you. So that's a question. I'm not saying that I'm the person, because Judy Sedgman, she was the person. In my recollection of her experience with the 3 principles, one of the first things, the first breakthrough she had was just, she realized when people were just really behaving badly and yelling, like it had nothing to do with her. Something in her got that. I'm not there yet. Not there yet. But it was lovely. Oh, this is possible. This is possible. And she has told stories about after somebody was busy ranting, after they were done ranting, just asking them, so what do you want? Like, wow, what spaciousness. And I'm saying all this because it's part of it. The comfort zone thing for me, I've realized over the years when people have brought it up to try to say, this is how we will be aware of stress and how we will find a way to dance with stress and not being stressed. It's pretty obvious to me that I first heard that from outward bound buddies of my brother, who was an outward bound instructor for years and years. And that basic model was based on people learning how to ride a bicycle. Like if you're trying to learn to ride a bicycle, you kind of want to do it. You might fall off. And so we want to find a way for you to be able to experiment and find what it's like to be able to ride a bicycle. But what's lacking in the bicycle model is the need or the wonderfulness of actually finding home. There's the notion of, we will now help hold space for you to really experience being utterly at home in yourself in this moment. And especially when my friends are trying to do something creative, it's so great to have some sense of being able to hold a space. And every conversation I have, if there's at least, if we know it's available, that we could just be quiet for a few minutes, and that's okay, and not need to know exactly what's going to come next. There's something, for me, I'm just naming, there's something really life-giving about that. And it just doesn't happen to fit into the comfort zone model. At least it's not well voiced by that. So that's my 3 cents worth about all this. It's just like, wow. Pain has its own potential energy. It's busy asking questions. I don't have to ask them. The pain itself is asking. Or the distress itself is asking. And then home, what a great, what a great thing. Thanks very much. Thank you for asking the question, and thank you for falling off the board and having a deeper experience because of that.
Nice, Peter. I just heard something in what you said. Those were the 2 things that you highlighted at the end that were standing out to me, that way of like the discomfort is already seeking, like it's a question, and then you said, and this availability of home, knowing that that's available. And I feel like, I was like, oh, like the discomfort is like a homing beacon, seeking home. Like, this isn't home, come back. This isn't, you've drifted, come back. I mean, this is one way that I'm like, oh, because the 2 really go together. How would we know we left home if it wasn't uncomfortable? How would we know that we were causing ourselves pain if we couldn't feel it when we touched a hot stove? Only really, like, it doesn't mean what I thought it meant, like, oh, something bad is happening right now, but I've left home and I know where it is. It's right here. Can take a moment, can take a breath. And there it is. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks, Peter. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Cheryl. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, as always. But I just want to pop in and just give what's happening in my little corner of the world here. And I always like to pop in on these every once in a while because Stephanie and just like the light switch that you flipped for me a couple years ago, I'm the testament to everything you guys are saying. I'm living proof of it. And it's not just me saying it. My finances reflect it. I'm now operating 3 businesses instead of the 1. I'm doing everything that I wanted to do, but was always too afraid or felt too like I wasn't good enough to do it. Like I need to be at this level or I need whatever. And shedding all of that, that's my crazy dog. And shedding all of that to stay home and keep buoyant, even when I'm at the lowest, even when I've fallen off the board, knowing that you do pop up. And you know what? Like you said, Tom, it doesn't hurt me. Okay, I feel uncomfortable and I don't like feeling uncomfortable. And neither do you, right? And this is how you're saying it. I get it. But what I love about this whole life right now is I have gotten to the point where I may feel those things of fear, but it's just that it's all just feedback. And I know what's right and what's not for me. Like I know at my core, and I'm not afraid to say no. And I'm not afraid to go off on my own, even when people are telling me, no, don't do that. It's like, so Stephanie, I'm writing. I'm being paid for it. I'm doing art. I'm getting paid for it. I found a friend who wants to do this with me, and we're creating, this whole other separate business, doing what I love, rock hounding. Those tiny trips you suggested, they're already booked again through the summer. Like I can't keep track of it all. And I love it. It's like none of it feels overwhelming or like too, it's like all so deliciously like, wow. And then I have this crazy psycho dog who honestly, I think anybody else might have put her down. She's on antipsychotic medication. She's very vocal. And I love her. She's a constant source of joy. Even if you inhale. And so she's telling me she's really got to get outside and get those squirrels right now, but she can't do that. So this would have stressed me even like a couple years ago, having this sort of interruption when I'm trying to like communicate with people. It's like, and now it is all truly just like beautifully okay. Like I am okay. And I am here exploring and I'm feeling, and I know, oh, wait a second, girl, you need to breathe. It's like, okay. But it comes so fluidly. It's like, it's never, I can't even describe it. And to let go of that fear in my business was something that I honestly never even thought, I didn't even know it was really available. Like I felt different levels of freedom, but I didn't know that like, oh my God, I can honestly actually go out and do whatever I want, whenever I want, and do it with a kind heart, knowing that like, and I swear to God, people are paying me for this. Like I don't advertise. I don't market. I don't have a website up for this other business. It's like, and there's a waiting list for stuff. So it's like, and I don't feel pressured to get it all done either. It's like, hey, thanks a lot for, and it all feels so juicy and delicious. And it's like, I could barely contain my excitement like before. And now it's like, it's like I'm the light walking around through the beacons. And my daughter actually the other night, she and her friend, they were having a sleepover and they were worried about, oh, but we watched this thing and now we're really scared and there might be somebody. And I came in and I was like, girls, I'm the thing those things are afraid of. I have the light of the universe. So you're cool. You're with me. It's fine. And seeing the joy again, light in their faces. It's like, they believed it because I believe it. And Stephanie, you're the one who I swear to you, like you flipped something in me and I stopped carrying this stuff around. And so anytime I get a chance to just like preach about it, I'm going to, because it really, really does. It does work and it lasts. It's like, historically things have come and go in my life. And this feeling, this sense of complete security. And I'm not saying my life is perfect. I'm not saying I don't have goals or things I still want to do. But I'm just saying I feel so completely free and supported and trusting in myself where I am in the universe that I truly feel at times I can just levitate around, just like, ooh, I'm so buoyant. I just float places. So I don't know. It's great fun. And I love sharing. And now I've got to let this dog out. So pardon me for just a moment.
Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. It's such a joy to hear. It was really fun journeying with Cheryl. And as I remember, I don't think she'll mind me sharing this. She was so caught up in her head, as so many of us are, about her business and just like spinning. And then she put it down. And I don't think of it as a flip that I switched. I don't even know what it was, but she was looking. She was exploring something new. And we were looking in the direction of truth. And that's what happens. The lights come on. Sometimes big time, sometimes a little bit. And it doesn't stop. The lights are still coming on for me. It's like, oh, it gets brighter. There's more to see. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see that. It sometimes feels like I'm seeing the same things again and again, only really this time, only deeper this time. And it is beautiful. Like, and I love hearing that in particular around, it warms my heart to see someone doing what I know is possible for everyone, which is you can create a life, a business that delights you. You can go for things not knowing whether or not it will work out, and you're buoyant and it'll be okay. And not only okay, you're going to discover things as a result of that you never would have if you stayed in your safe little home. But the thing is, because you are in your safe little home, right? Like, it's portable. We take it with us into every situation. That, God, knowing that, it's the best thing ever. And I don't even feel it every moment. I don't need to. Just having touched it, having tasted it, you don't forget. Thank you. What else? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, it's Bruce, and I'll take a run.
Hi, Bruce.
What came up, because I was contrasting comfort versus fear, and the balancing point is trust. As I condition for the ski season here in Colorado, I use a wobble board, and the closer you are to the middle, the easier it is. When you're out on the edges, the more alterations that you have to compensate for. And I just wrote down some things about comfort versus fear. We get caught up in thoughts of always versus never, just extreme polarities, and hence the need for the middle ground, because I've been part of a Zen Sangha for a long time, and one of our founders made the statement, our angst is our liberation. And, if we can go through things rather than over, under, or around, there's some great lessons to learn in just being okay with what is, and having a respect for life itself, because you had mentioned, Stephanie, things come and go. It's a natural process. And the more we can pay attention to the resiliency of nature, the more trust comes into our life. And I put different categories of comfort, like safety. We can accomplish something, or we might fear that we'll be annihilated. And pleasure, that we might be satiated or come out deficient. Or emotion, that we're either right or wrong. And all of these thoughts are spinning around us, and we can either use ourselves as Velcro or Teflon. They can just stick to us or just bounce off and slide away. And it's okay to have a little angst. I mean, that's how we build muscle, by lifting. And it's so much a natural process that our society and marketing tries to lead us down different paths to eliminate the angst in our lives and just create lives of pure pleasure, which is really naive. And, this whole moving process that I might need to jump off at any minute because we have things to do in this house that we're selling. My wife and I were on a 1 to 5 year plan, and I said to her, well, just check out this one situation. Well, she started talking to the realtor and said, well, my wife or my daughter has a townhouse showing today. She went over there and bing, bing. And we went from a 1 to 5 year plan to a 1 month plan. And lo and behold, on the first day of showing, we were offered beyond our asking price. And we've sealed the deal on where we're going. And the people coming in here have given us leeway to rent for free so that we can accomplish things where we're going. I mean, it truly is a trust process. And, just like with the recent financial market, those go up and down. And at this stage in life, we can have a lot of fear being on fixed income. But, we built this house 15 years ago and we've doubled our equity. So, the universe has provided some equity that we'll have for liquidity because we're downsizing. Yeah, we still got stinky investments, but we can float on this other raft for a while those things come back. So yeah, life is interesting, but trust and really, really recognizing that it's totally natural. We have 4 seasons for a reason, and that's the way that things grow, and they decay and grow again. So those are some of my thoughts on comfort.
Well, that's lovely, Bruce. You know what I feel in what you say, and that's really what stays with me, what I feel in what you say. It's natural. What we're experiencing is natural. Discomfort, pain, and then the buoyancy and the resilience that all this passes. This is. That's really beautiful. And how cool that you and your wife were open to seeing an accelerated plan, a 1 month plan. Wow. That's what you meant by be careful what you wish for. You're right. We have no idea sometimes, like how long something's going to take, how hard it will be, how we'll feel when something happens. I have no idea. No idea. And that's cool. That's not scary. That's cool because it's not fixed. I'm not stuck. And it's just going to go how it goes. I'm going to ride it. We're riding the wave. It's natural. Sometimes we get washed up on the shore for a bit. It's okay. I'm feeling better about the water already. What else? I'm curious. What are you seeing? What are you seeing new and fresh? What's interesting? Or maybe what questions are coming up for you in this discussion? We've got time for one more person to share, perhaps, if it's here. It's an interesting feeling, right? When you're in a group and there's an opening for someone to share. Sometimes a lot of things will go through me, and I usually just wait. And at some point, I actually know if there's something, but it's okay. Whether you know, or you just want to, or you just find yourself hitting the unmute button, all's good. And keeping quiet also. Perfect. I want to hear from you. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mikhaila,
no.
go ahead. Yeah.
Were you going to call on someone? Because
I was going to call on Tom, but I'll still call on him. So come on, Mikhaila.
Well, actually, I don't know that this is how this really fits in here, but so it might be for another time, but it keeps coming up of a discomfort like it's very comfortable when there's only one thing. And it's very uncomfortable for me when there's a number of things. So here's a really practical example. Getting a meal all cooked with multiple things all together, like all moving them along at the same time so we can sit down and eat the whole meal at one time. That is a challenge in my mind. And I've noticed that it's like that everywhere.
Hmm.
And I really want everything to just come on, can I be a little herder and just have things all like, yeah. So I don't really know how that fits in here, but that was what came up when Bruce was talking about comfort. And that was the image that came up. So I don't even know if there's anything to say about that right now.
Cool. I like that you're asking that. You know, what came up for me when you said that, Michaela, was I wonder if you've noticed how many things are happening effortlessly all at once. So like when you started saying like, I'm okay with one thing, but not with many things, like that's uncomfortable. And I was like, fingers? You know, cause you're using all of them when you pick something up, right? And no, I'm not actually even being silly. Like there's so many things are happening at once and it's effortless. Or if you've tried to just look in your life where already things are just happening, many things happening at the same time, and you don't need to do anything for that. And you know what your place is in them. You know, like there's something I have been learning about cooking. And I see this in life and in meetings, right? Okay, I'll say in meetings. There's a group of people and I'm running a meeting, whatever that means, right? Oh, I got to make sure stuff happens, whatever that means. But I realized that there are all these people to manage and things to manage. But if I just relax, stuff occurs to me, and it occurs to me one thing at a time because it's only one moment at a time. It's this moment. And it's like, oh, this. I feel like more like not like a conductor who's telling people what to do, but like more like a conductor as if I am responding to exactly what's happening by like being with it. You know, and that's just happens to be my role, is pointing to it. Like, oh, your turn now, your turn now. But they know because they're already doing it as I'm pointing. It's just a harmonizing of these many things. And so many times when we're overwhelmed, we think about all the things all at once. I have to do them all at once. And of course, that's crazy. You can't. It is impossible to do all the things all at once. But many things can happen by just doing the one thing, this now thing, and then this now thing. It's very different. It might be kind of fun to play with that. I don't know if any of that speaks to you, Michaela, but yeah.
I'm so glad I put it out there. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared it because I think that's something that, God, anytime I remember being at the bottom, talking about Colorado, being at the bottom of the sky stairs in Durango. And if you look up, it's a climb. And I forget if it's over 400 stairs or something. It might even be more than that. And if I think about climbing all of them on a hot day, like forget about it. But you don't climb all of them. You climb one. And then the next one. And as long as I don't think about it, sooner or later I get there. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our hour together. Tom, you want to send us home with something? Send us to the home within?
Yeah,
Remind
we'll
us.
send you all home with a gift prize, which is just something that you already have. And I love that several people mentioned the word buoyancy, and your actual beyond wasn't even a metaphor when you were talking about in the water. The buoyancy was working the whole time. So I just want to say that, like, a lot of times when we get into these conversations, might think there's something new to get or new to learn, but maybe if we actually also just look backwards at what's always been happening, like this buoyancy that we were talking about, it's a natural phenomenon, and we're always buoyant. We've always been buoyant. And the thing for me is, like, if I know I'm buoyant when I have the experience of going down, it's different than when I don't know that I'm buoyant. Either way, I am, and I have been. So I just think that's a beautiful, for me at least, hope maybe for others too, that feeling, that word, even that word evokes that feeling of being buoyant. So that's the prize you all get to go home with.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And thank you so much for joining us here. I look forward to seeing you again. Bye
Thank
for now.
everybody.